The Nintendo Switch 2 launched on June 5th, 2025, and as of this recording, it's July 5th. A month later, here are my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2 and if it's worth it. But before we get into this video, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all our content. So a month later, is the Switch 2 really worth its very steep price tag? The Switch 2 makes many improvements over the predecessor. The screen size, power, graphics, internal storage, Joy-Con size, adding game chat, and a new mouse mode to the Joy-Cons themselves. But with these improvements comes some cons. With an updated screen size and a more powerful screen, allowing to play 1080p in handheld mode, which has been fantastic, absolutely fantastic, it does cause the Switch 2's battery life to be a lot, not a lot, but a little less than the battery life of the Switch 1. Now, later down the line, I do expect Nintendo to have updates and make improvements to the Switch 2, but for a launch, it is a little disappointing to see, and at least in my opinion, that the Switch 2 battery is a little less than the Switch 1. However, compared to the competition, the Switch 2 battery life is a little bit longer and better than the Steam Deck, which a lot of people are comparing the Switch 2 to the Steam Deck just because it is relevant and we need competition. Graphically, the Switch 2 is a much needed improvement over the Switch 1, even if the actual handheld screen is not an OLED screen and it's an LCD. The Switch 2 runs off of a GPU that is more comparable to an RTX 2050 or a 3050 mobile GPU. Now, this allows it to be running at 1080p resolution and 120 Hz refresh rate, which is awesome compared to the Switch 1. And you can see a really big difference. Now, to primarily play these games, you obviously will be using the Joy-Con in the handheld mode, but if you didn't want to cough up the money to get the Switch 2 Pro controller, which is at a pretty steep price at $80 in my opinion, it could be a little lower. The Joy-Con did get an upgrade by becoming the Joy-Con 2. They made the size bigger of the Joy-Con, they updated the HD rumble, and they added the mouse mode. Now, my problem with the Joy-Con is it was never the size of the Joy-Con, it was more of the ergonomic. It is a little more comfortable to use the Joy-Con 2s compared to the first Joy-Con, but the ergonomics are still not there. I have found myself many times getting cramps in my hand or just feeling uncomfortable playing in handheld mode. And the Joy-Con 2s being still a little uncomfortable is unfortunate because I love playing in handheld mode. It's awesome. That's what makes the Switch awesome. That's what is going to continue to make the Switch 2 awesome. With a new upgrade to the Joy-Cons came the mouse mode. However, my biggest problem with the mouse mode is at launch, there's not a lot of games that utilize the mouse mode. They showed it off a lot at the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, but it's not even available in Mario Kart World. It's only available in their Welcome Tour and I believe in Fortnite. I am excited to see what they do with the mouse mode in the future and what games have it. For example, Metroid Prime 4, which is coming out at a later date, hopefully still in 2025, will have that mouse mode. But as of right now, it's only in the 2 to 3 games that I mentioned, and it is coming out in a new paint art style game mode for the new Donkey Kong Bonanza, which looks pretty fun, pretty cool, but I can only see myself using that for a couple of hours. As always, with the launch of a new console, there's also the launch of new games. The Nintendo Switch 2 launched with Mario Kart World and with Welcome Tour, which many of us were disappointed with that it wasn't a built-in packaged game. As it stands right now, I found that the first party selection for the Switch 2 has been a little lackluster. I understand that there's been a lot of third-party game releases. For example, I picked up Street Fighter 6 on launch day of Switch 2, and I found the game to be really enjoyable, and I never picked it up on the Xbox or PlayStation when it first came out. So it's been fun to play and switch to that here and let me clarify what I mean by the lackluster first party games. It's not that the games aren't great. I have been loving Mario Kart World. I know a lot of people have. I have cousins that I've been playing it with. It's been fantastic. But going forward in the future of the Switch 2, we only know about Donkey Kong Bonanza coming out. We know about a new Splatoon spin-off coming out and Pokemon Z8 coming. Another new addition that you can only do and play with Nintendo Switch 2 is the Nintendo GameCube edition to Switch Online. This has been awesome. This has been something that a lot of people have been waiting and asking for to come with the Switch 1, but we understand why it comes with the Switch 2. These games are emulated. It could take a little bit more power to emulate them, which honestly I don't think it does. I'm pretty sure they could have put this on the Switch 1, but they just want to sell more consoles, and this is just a nice little marketing scheme for Nintendo to sell more consoles. A new addition to the UI is that they added game chat. And I have experienced game chat for a little bit. I used it, it was good. I don't think I'm going to use it a lot. My one problem I will say with game chat is I went to use game chat with my cousins and a couple of my friends. Now, when I created a channel, I added only my cousins and friends that were online. However, later on, one of my cousins decided that he could join and hop on. When I went to go add him, there is no option in the settings to add him. You have to leave the whole entire chat. Now, this is me picking on very small little details that bother me, but I do hope Nintendo fixes it in the future because I would like to use the game chat how it's intended. Speaking of the UI, another thing that bothers me is that there's no themes for the Nintendo Switch 2. We had themes way back on the 3DS, and this has been something that a lot of people have been asking for, and it's still not here. So what's up with that, Nintendo? Now, as I said, it's a month later. Is the Switch 2 really worth it? And in my opinion, I say yes. However, I will say this. If you can hold back and wait to get the Switch 2, if you already have a Switch 1, I would. If you don't have a Switch 1 and want to get into the Switch family, go ahead, go buy the Switch 2. It is so worth it. There is no point to have a Switch 1 anymore or to go buy one due to the fact that you can play 99% of the Switch 1 games on the Switch 2. So overall, I would give the Switch 2 about an 8.8 to a 9. You can't really rank it lower than the Switch 1 because it's an upgraded version, but we will have to see later down the road if the actual generation is better due to the games. Are the games being pumped out and more entertaining? So so now we just kind of play the waiting game to see what Nintendo does in the future. Let me know down below what you guys think of the Switch 2. Have you purchased one? Are you still looking to purchase one? What games are you excited for? And remember, like, comment, and subscribe.